This video focuses on the second part of the numerical modelling, Unit 5 for Year 7, and we're assuming that you have watched the video for the first half and also completed the Homer's Donuts task that's listed at the very beginning. So the next task to focus on is the graphs task. Now this is to give you an opportunity to try to examine the different types of graphs that you can draw using Excel, and to find out which graphs work for different types of data. Now, the key point here is the difference between pie charts, bar graphs, and column graphs. Now, whether you use a bar graph or a column graph, really the only difference is the data is appearing either vertically or horizontally in the case of bar graphs. These tend to be used where the individual pieces of data are what we call discrete. So the data is separate, things like colors or some sort of choice of TV program or something like that. Now, we tend to use line graphs where the data is continuous. Line graphs tend to provide a really good snapshot of how things change over time. Now, pie charts tend to be overused. Pie charts are a really good way of being able to see how data is split up amongst a single group. So don't use a pie chart unless adding up the numbers means something. So adding up the numbers of the people with the favorite color will give you the total for the number of students in the class. And so that makes sense. So if you have Word installed on your computer, you can double click on this Word document to load that up on your computer and use that for your Excel document. However, the data is copied on the side of OneNote, so you can simply select each of these tables one at a time, copy the data, and then either using real Excel or using the online version of Excel, get yourself a blank workbook, and then paste the data straight into Excel. Now, once the data is there, you can then select the data and then look at the different chart options that you have available in the online version or in the real version of Excel. In the Excel app, you can change things like titles just by double clicking on them, same with axes. If you are doing that in the online version, double click on the item to load up options on the right hand side. So in this case, for example, changing the title, I can double click and I can edit the title straight there. The task is to look at these pieces of data and to try and decide which is the best type of graph to use and try and produce the best form of that graph to include in your final answer. So you'll notice your workbook has a nice space for the screenshots of your best graph for each of the pieces of data. The fast formula task can be left until your teacher briefs you to start that in class. It may need to take place when we're back in school. But once you've done task 1 and task 2, you are ready to move on to our assess task, which is the GameShop Spreadsheet. Now, this is really an extension of the Homer's Donuts task. It gives you the opportunity to play around with some initial data on a model for a games selling website or a games selling shop. We call this the GameShop Spreadsheet. So the basic model already has some data in there, but you're free to change any of that data and obviously make it more impressive, make it look better, and importantly, make sure that you have the formulas in place to be able to work out how much the shop will take in a particular week. If you have Excel installed on your device, then opening this spreadsheet will launch the basic data, but we recommend even then starting off a brand new workbook and pasting the data into there. If you don't have Excel on your machine, click on the link and this will load up the sheet with all of the data on it. Select the data, right click and copy, select the corner app selector and Excel, get yourself a blank workbook and use the clipboard to paste in the data. Now you'll probably want to immediately move this data somewhere a bit lower down on the sheet so you've got space for a nice title. You can illustrate this by pasting in images from games to make it look like a proper sheet. Keep it businesslike, but you'll notice that you'll need to start marking in some formulas. The markup is the amount of profit per game. So in this case, we're buying each of these games for £35. We're selling them for £49.99. So the markup will be the difference between the two. We need to put a formula in here. So if the buying cost changes, or we decide to sell the game for a different amount, the markup will change accordingly. This is the number of games being sold. And so here we can work out the total amount of profit, not just the profit per game, but the amount of profit if we sell 5 games. So once you've got the basic sheet working, this represents the sales for a particular week. So you're free to extend that to further weeks, maybe make up a whole month of sales. So our most advanced students every year put in details that we don't tell them, things that they research that a business would need to spend money on. And that gives you an opportunity to really extend this spreadsheet and make it really realistic. But for everybody, it's an opportunity to show the basic spreadsheet formulas and you have a handle on how that works. Now, in the student workbook, below the title GameShop Spreadsheet, you'll see some instructions on evidence to include. One of the important things to make sure is that you do show some examples of what if you change some data, for example, the price of the games, and what effect that has on the overall result for your spreadsheet. You can also include some graphs and put in a kind of front sheet that shows you the different things that you've included in your spreadsheet. You'll also find an explanation at the bottom on how your work will be marked, so specifically what you need to include in your work for the highest possible grades. So the very best of luck for the assignment, and try to make sure that your evidence is as high quality as it possibly can be.